morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? I am Jennifer Sells. I am located here in Denver, Colorado. And I was asked to come on the show today and talk about something current that's going on in the market. So, one of the things that I am faced with almost daily right now is something that I swore I would never, ever, ever want to be in real estate again if it happened. But it's happening. It's happening again. And here I am still in real estate and having to, help clients work through these issues. I don't know if anybody else is being challenged right now in their market, but I am. So, what's the problem, you ask, right? I think I had 7 consultations last week. No, the week before. And then last week, I think I had 3. And what I'm dealing with is people are calling me and they're asking for a way out. So they're asking me, they bought their house 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or even last year, and they're faced with a job transfer or a job loss, or they got their property tax bill, or they got their insurance bills, and now their payments have gone up $500, $600, $700, and they don't know what to do. So let's talk about that today. So what's happening is you start getting these clients and they're calling you, they're saying, please help me. I need to sell my house. And then of course you say, okay, let's work through a net sheet. Let's work through like what your situation is. For example, I had one that purchased in March of 2023. And not from me, from another agent, it doesn't really matter. But they called me and they were like, I really want a cash offer. And I'm like, okay, explain to me why you want a cash offer. Because cash offers really don't work for very many people, because cash offer companies are in the business of making money. They run off of a 20 to 30% profit margin, and their fees are approximately, give or take 9 to 11%, depending on which company you are working through the cash offer with. Now, are there good options or decent options in cash offers? Possibly, right? But if they're upside down, I'm going to tell you that 99.999% of the time, I don't care what cash offer company it is, it's not going to work. I don't care if it's the kind like Homeward that gives them the cash offer, they leave, then we put it on the market, and then they get the difference. That doesn't do them any good, because the fees are still coming in around 9 to 11%. They're not getting enough to pay off their mortgage in the first place, and then they have to go on faith that when Homeward puts it back on the market, that it's going to sell for at market value or above, and they're going to get some of the difference. Well, it's just not working, right? So I don't know if anybody is in here and wants to jump into the chat. I don't know if you have run across anybody in a situation like that right now. If you have, throw up your hand, just turn on your mic and interrupt me, because I am all about interaction on my calls. Okay, so what is the solution, right? So how are you going to help these people? Because in my world, I wish I was less compassionate, but I'm not. I'm very compassionate. In my world, I got into real estate because I actually wanted to help people. And so one of the things that we have to run through is calling your bank, right? Let's start with the bank first. Can you modify your loan? If you've lost your job, the likelihood is no, right? But let's say your property tax and your insurance went up. The bank might be willing to work with you to modify that loan somewhat in order to get the payments back down to what they were before the property tax and the insurance increased. Make sense? Banks know what is coming, right? They understand, they see the future, they know what is coming. So banks right now are actually quite willing to work with people when it comes to a loan mod. All right, so maybe they lost their job. I know forbearance is a word that we used from the COVID years, right? It was offered basically nationwide. You could put your house into forbearance for 6 months, and if you called it 6 months mark, you could put it off for another 12. And then what they did is they just added it all up, and they put a HUD lien on your house for that amount, and then they threw it at the end. And that included like your HOA, your insurance, your payments, your property tax, everything. They paid it, they kept paying it. And then what they would do is they would add it to a secondary lien on your house. And if you've sold any houses recently that did that, that's where that second lien comes from. That says, it usually says HUD loan or something on it, or yeah, anyways. So that's what they did, and that's what that loan generally is if it's over 14,000, 15,000. Okay, so we've talked about having them call the bank first and ask if they can do a loan modification. There are lenders out there that are willing to actually take on clients to help them through that loan modification process, because some people, like doing taxes, it scares them to death and they never make the call, right? So reach out to your lenders and see who is and who isn't working through loan mods with clients. The second option that we just went over is to have them call the bank and ask if they have possibly a forbearance program still in place. All right. The likelihood of the forbearance still being in place is kind of low, right? But some banks are still doing it. So those are the two first things I tell them to do. Call and see if you can get a loan mod, then call and see if you can get a forbearance. If you can't, let's run the seller's net sheets, right? So in the example that I gave you, this gentleman purchased his house in March of 2023. He purchased it for $275,000, and then he got a he got a first FHA loan and a down payment assistance loan through CHFA, and the value did not go up. We actually had a 1% depreciation 2 years in a row in that particular county here in Denver. By the way, side note, I have not heard of that happening since maybe 2009, right? But in those two counties, we did have 1% negative or depreciation, right? So we went down 1%. So currently, if I pull the comps, I can sell his house for 265, maybe 267, maybe 260. I mean, I don't know, somewhere between 260 and 267. But there's 42 available condos within a half a mile from his little townhome condo, right? So what do you think? Or you think we're going to sell on the 260 or the 277, right? So what I say is I say, okay, what is the third thing I do is I say, what is your payment? And we talk about it. The payment is $2,201, right? And the HOA is $450. So, let's say that's almost $2,700, $2,650, right? So then what we do is we go to Rent-A-Meter and we go to Zillow and we start researching rent rates in the area, and I say, okay, listen, if you can't make the mortgage, are you behind? No, I'm not behind, but I'm about to be. And in 60 days, I'm going to be behind. All right, do you have somewhere else to live? Okay. if you can't get your loan mod, you can't get your a forbearance, do you have somewhere else to live? If they say yes, then we start researching rental rates. And in this case, it didn't work, right? But, at least we know, okay, you're going to pay $2,650 a month, but the rent rates in the neighborhood are $1,900. I don't know, guys. This is happening everywhere. And a couple people just jumped in. If you jumped in and you have something to say, or you have a client going through any of this, feel free to turn on your microphone and just interrupt me and ask me questions. I'm totally fine with that. Okay, so in this case, we searched the rent rates. The rent rates in the neighborhood are $1,900. For him to clear the mortgage, it would be $26,000. Okay, as an agent, let's say I did the rent rates and the rent rates were $2,450 and his total payment was $2,600 or $2,650. So maybe he's negative $150 or $200 a month. In some cases, depending on where they're going, and like if they're going to live with their mom, or if they're going to live with a relative or a friend that's only going to charge them $1,000 a month, right? Could they possibly rent that property for $2,400 and then just pay the extra $250? Yeah, they'll be in the whole $200 a month or whatever a month. But is that better than the alternative, right? So that's a question you sometimes need to be able to explain to your client. The other thing is, in your market, especially here, we have, and depending on location, so this guy's property, really beautiful property, by the way, is located within a mile of the Aurora Children's Hospital campus, okay? And it's also over by UC Health, so there's a big hospital area there. So the other suggestion that I have is, what if we could do the nurse program, right? Because they pay more and they pay by the week, the night, the month, and sometimes you make even more. So on a unit like that, you might be able to make $3,000 a month, $3,500 a month, and now you're net positive. So when you have clients that are upside down, you need to be going through every single possible solution for them. So loan mod, or this is where we're at so far, loan mod, asking if there's a forbearance, rent rates in your neighborhood for long-term rents. Then we talk about corporate rentals, is there a company that can furnish it and get more for you? Or possibly even doing the nurse programs. Those nurse programs are great options if you live near a hospital. The next thing you could do is go onto the Airbnb site, type in the zip code in the neighborhood, and it will give you the rent rates for the per night rent rates and the demand. So go and do that. Maybe they could move into another house and they could Airbnb it and make enough for the mortgage, right? Yes, everything is kind of shifty, right? Nothing is a perfect answer. But our job as real estate agents is to attempt to help them get out of the deep end of the ocean, right? We want to try to get them in where they can breathe again. So those are a couple options that we have. The next thing I want to talk about is short sales. So not my proudest thing, but way back 2008, 9, 10, 11, was more like 9, 10, 11. I did 95 or 96 short sales in a row. It was a very dark time in real estate for me. But yes, I did 95, 96 short sales in a row. And way back then, the rules were that the client had to be in default for the asset managers to even look at a short sale. And then, there used to be a certification years ago called CDPE, Certified certified depressed property expert. They don't have that designation anymore. I don't know why. I am sure, and I did not do my research. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sure they have some sort of designation right now for depressed properties. And if your market is experiencing any sort of people being upside down, that would be a great certification for you to get so that you can speak, on the level that you need to be able to speak to help these people, right? So go and search your designations, maybe look at EXP's library and see if we have anything in there. But for short sales years ago, you had to be behind on your payments. And then you also had to show that they had a reason, which you still do. You have to show that they have a reason, like they are in trouble, they cannot make their payments. And another thing is you have to be able to prove that the value is not worth what the loan is. So in this situation, I can absolutely prove that the house is not worth what he bought for in March of 2023. Not a problem. We can absolutely prove that he has an issue making the payments because he does not have a job. Okay, so we got 2 down. Do you have to be in default? Okay, so this is sort of up to the banks. I'm telling you that most of the banks right now are looking at short sales without you being in default. Why? Because they see the writing on the wall. And if you think about it, if somebody was going to go into foreclosure, which costs the bank more? Forgiving or giving a 1099-R or signing a note for that $10,000 or $12,000, right? So you either forgive it, they'll either forgive that $10,000 or $12,000, whatever it is. They'll either give a 1099-R and make you report it to your taxes, or they will sign a note with you that you have to make payments on the gap. But, the banks know that if you stop paying and they go into notice of election and demand, then they have the cost of the attorneys. They have the cost of filing. They have the cost of eviction. The list goes on, and I promise you, it's more than $10,000. They're going to have HOA fees. They're going to have HOA fines. They're going to have utilities. They're going to have winterizations. Like a general foreclosure can cost a bank upwards of $15,000 to $25,000, depending on how long they have to hold it. So if your people are behind on your payment, you may suggest to them that we talk about a short sale. And if they're not behind on their payments, and like in this situation, I had a lender, this did not come from me, like full disclosure. So I had a lender talk about this with a client, and I was listening. If you're behind $10,000 to $14,000, you're not behind, you're going to have a deficiency of $10,000 to $14,000, which is pretty common right now. But you're not behind on your payments, and you can show that you cannot make the payments, and you can show that the value of the properties are down, then the bank will consider it usually. I'm not going to say all banks will, but most will. And then instead of it counting as a short sale, like foreclosures count 7 years or 3 years, depending on the kind. Sometimes short sales used to count for 3 years against your credit. Sometimes if you're not in default and you sign that loan, or you get the 1099-R and they report it to the government, right? Whatever. Sometimes it is only on your credit for a year, right? It only counts against you for a year. So it's a good option for some people, right? I just say, go out there, take the short sale courses, and then, make the best, help your client make the best decisions. Okay, I'm gonna take a drink because I've been talking nonstop. Is anybody on here that has anything to say or has a client that's upside down right now, has a situation like this? Or is it just me? Am I the only agent in the country that is dealing with 10 people right now that are behind in some way, shape, form, or fashion?
What I'm finding out is because I've taken on two listings now where we get all the way through and the sellers forget that they did a forbearance. So now I have one, like you said, we had to consider doing the short sale, which we're doing. And then the other, thankfully, they have enough equity that, they're going to still walk away with a nice chunk of change. But them forgetting that is a major
Okay. So,
issue.
Kimberly, so here's what I'm going to tell every single agent on the entire planet right now. We got a little lackadaisical. I'm not saying you are, right? I'm just saying, like, as a community, we got a little lackadaisical in the last few years because um, we were selling at a higher rate and properties were flying off the shelf, right? But years ago, when we took a listing, the very first thing we did is get, even before, like if we knew we were going to get the listing, we would call the title company and we would order an owners and encumbrances report. The owners and encumbrances report would come back. We may have already signed the listing, but the owners in court would come back. Then we would run another seller's net sheet based off the owners and encumbrances, and then we would say, "Hey, Mr. Seller, we were going to sell your property for 300,000 or 500,000 or 800,000 or whatever that number is, but you have a forbearance on here, and the total, and I have one of those right now, and the total is $72,000." So we have to take the real estate commissions, we have to take the second from HUD, we have to take the first, and we have to take any liens, right, that are on here too, because they took a forbearance. If the forbearance didn't catch some of those liens, you may have liens as well, right, like HOA liens or credit card liens or whatever. So Kimberly, I'm going to tell you that any listing that you get from here until this market goes gangbusters again, which I don't think it ever will, but whatever, pull an O&E the moment you like get that listing. So you would
What
do
is
that.
it called again? Can you repeat it for me? Sorry.
Your title company should be able to pull in what's called an O&E, which is an owners and encumbrances report.
Okay. And should they be charging me for that?
Mine don't, but I do enough business that they don't bother me with it. Some title companies want to charge like $5 for it. And so
Okay.
so what it is they're just pulling title work, but is an owners and encumbrances is a little more in depth than just a typical quick title search, right? Like you and I can
Mm-hmm.
go to the county, right, and we can look at certain things, but we may not see all the liens that are recorded, like a mechanic's lien or a roofer's lien or all those things, and that might come up in like the title work, which is what happened to you
Mm-hmm.
after you negotiated the price and all that
All
stuff,
the
and
things.
now you're like, oh my gosh, now I can't get paid, right? And I have seen agents close a deal because they, right, so the amount was off by X amount, and their commission was whatever amount. We're not going to talk about the commissions, right? And because they didn't pull their O&E, they didn't want to tortiously interfere with the contract, so they had to basically sell it for $5 on their. I've seen that happen before.
Oh my
So
God.
always pull an O&E, especially right now while people could be upside down. And yes, remember that you cannot sell a property for zero because you don't have what? Anybody want to jump in? If you can't charge zero when you're selling a property because you don't have errors and omissions. So errors and omissions. So owners and encumbrances, errors and omissions, right? If you're dyslexic, errors and omissions is your insurance. owners and encumbrances is the report that comes from the title company. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it is 26 after, but I have another little part of this that we really need to talk to. So at the very, very beginning of this call, I talked about how sometimes you're getting these calls. I don't know where I get them from, but I get them from a lead source and some other, and just people that I know, and they want cash offers because maybe they've seen an ad that they get full market value. Well, they don't. We all know cash offers. They end up charging you about they want to make a profit, so they're going to make like 20 to 30%, and they're going to charge somewhere like 9 to 11% in fees, right? So you get these calls in, absolutely insane, and for some reason, one of the lead sources I have, actually sends the names out to investors against my wishes, and I've called them a million times, but whatever. So here in Denver, we have a little company that really concerns the heck out of me. I won't say its name, and I think it's nationwide, by the way, and it starts with H and it's 3 letters. The end. But what they are doing is they are offering to take over the loan. It is a form of subject to. I want you to repeat after me. Do not get involved with a subject to. You can lose your license, okay? Just stay clear. If they want to go that route, all you can do is advise them. Does anybody need me to explain the subject to? Okay, nobody jumped in, so I'm just going to explain it anyway. So what they're doing is they are coming in and they're saying, this is what this company's doing. They're coming in and they're saying, okay, it's totally legal. You're totally safe. Not. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a trust, and we're going to have you sign the homeowner, and we're going to add you to the trust, and we're going to have you sign the home into the trust. And then the trust, our company, is now going to make the payments. Okay. Can you sign your deed over to your cat if you want to? Absolutely. You can sign your deed over to anybody you want, right? That's not the problem. The problem is that 9% of all loan paperwork, when you're signing it at the closing table, or you aren't, but your clients are, and you're sitting there and you're listening to the title company, and they said, and this little section right here is called a due on sale clause, right? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Due on sale. Well, the moment that you quit claim that property over to somebody, you technically sold it. Okay? So technically, that loan is due, right? Now, is the bank going to say anything? Probably not. As long as that company is paying the mortgage, right? By the way, there's another company in town doing the same thing, and they are guaranteeing that they're going to sell it in 7 years, which is even scarier to me. So what they're going to do is they're going to rent that property for 7 years, and then they're going to sell it. So you only have to worry about this subject to for 7 years. Okay, the problem with all of this is this. And when you're talking to your clients, you really need to be able to explain this to them so they don't get themselves into trouble. The problem is that, let's say, 2 years from now, somebody decides to sue the company, this H company, or even the other one, right? And they go bankrupt, or they stop paying this mortgage. Who's responsible for the mortgage? Because the owner signed away their rights, their deed to the company. The bank still says that the original signer of that loan is responsible. So you really need to be able to express that to your clients so that they don't get themselves into a situation. So when they're upside down, there's really no great options, but let's get educated on all the different things so that we know what their options are and we can advise them through it. And yes, I hope it ends up in a sale for you. But if we can help them keep their house, let's help them keep their house for sure, right? Until at least the market recovers. So Kimberly, got anything else for me?
No, ma'am. I was trying to find the mute.
I'm so sorry that you went through that. I have been.
We're still under contract, so fingers crossed. We can do the thing. The appraiser went out and there were squatters in the property, so we had to get the squatters out, and now he's scheduled to come back next week. So fingers crossed we can get there. I'm invested now.
What town are you in? I'm just curious.
I'm in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, but this particular property is in Baltimore. So
I've dealt with my fair share of squatters too.
It's been fun. It's been an exciting start to the year.
Yeah. But all we do is put a sign in the yard and make $1 million, right? No. So I hope you got some value from today. I really appreciate you showing up this Wednesday. I think I gave you one tidbit of advice, maybe you didn't know, and that's to order your O&E from your title company immediately. And yeah, wish you luck. If you ever have any questions, give me a call. I'm here in Denver and I can answer anything generally. So have a great day.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.